because there was nothing about women. There was nothing. When I was a student at the UW in graduate school, there were no women professors. There was nobody in the history department. I was in a graduate seminar discussing the progressive era of all things. You know, gender, feminism is at the forefront of the progressive era, and everything. I just wrote a book on this subject. Everything. And I will never forget this seminar. You could smoke in those days in your seminars. There was this graduate student who puffed on his pipe. And he was going on about how America was a democracy. And I said, how could you say America's a democracy? I said, women couldn't vote, black people in the South couldn't vote. And he goes, well, what does that have to do with anything? And my professor never said a word. So when you say sort of what precipitated it, it's people like Mary Rothschild, who was interested in the civil rights movement, who was involved in the women's movement, and myself, you know, trying to find out, are there women in history? Now, in the summer of '68, Seattle Radical Women, we did a class series on women in the on women, and graduate students, sociology of women, women in literature, and I was assigned to do women in the labor movement. And I still have the talk. I still have the talk. And it was all Philip Foner's history of the labor movement in the United States, because he always had chunks on black workers and women workers, or Negro workers and women workers, and Eleanor Flexner, who was in and around the Communist Party when she wrote A Century of Struggle. That's all there was, relatively contemporary stuff that dealt with women in the labor movement. So, you know, and I'm a history student, so that's what got me interested and involved. And I got one degree in labor history, and then I got one MA in labor history and one MA in U.S. history, and then the PhD in women's history. But I wasn't unique. I mean, you started reading poetry, and you started reading literature, and people said, why not a course on women in literature? And I mean, I read Jane Austen in high school. The idea that this was a commentary about women's lives and inequality in women's lives was never mentioned. You know, you know, no wonder I fell asleep through my English classes, because there was nothing in it that connected, that made it at all relevant for any of us. There was a huge struggle about getting women's studies accepted, you know, because most older academics didn't view it as a serious discipline. Many people still today don't, but I mean, that was really part of the problem. Now, what was funny was that one of the women in our women's group in Seattle, when we became Seattle Women's Liberation Seattle, a bunch of our members were at SCC, Seattle Central Community College, and they got the community college to hire me as their first women's studies professor. So the women in my group founded SCCC's women's studies program. I don't think there is one today.